Hey everybody, welcome RiverCity-Media Playoff Edition, semifinals in the state of Alabama. Howard Chaney along with, believe it or not, QB1 joins us tonight. It's been a while since we saw you, QB.
Hey, you know what? I was kidnapped by the Butcher Brothers, and I had to get escaped. And then I actually had pneumonia, man, and it took me out for a while. So I'm back, and actually next Thursday we're relaunching the wrestling show. So a lot of good things happening.
Good deal. Awesome. 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 Yeah, I
Eh,
played the full countdown tonight because the semifinals here in Alabama, not very many teams. Randy's with us tonight because he's going to talk a little bit about a few teams in Tennessee.
Also, one of the things I wanted to point out before we get started tonight, I'm going to talk about teams in Tennessee. I'm going to talk about a total of 8 teams. If you go back to August when we first started this and did that preview, 5 of the 8 teams were my favorites or favorites in that division. So, I outside of Sequatchie, who I thought would do well, but was put out in the second round by Meigs County. We're going to talk about teams that we thought would do well in Tennessee, which was Tyner. We'll talk about Gatlinburg Pittman, which I brought up then. We'll talk about Baylor, and we're going to talk about Marion and South Pittsburgh. Those 5 teams are teams that's been with us since the first of the year, and it's really coming down in Tennessee to the favorites, playing the favorites.
Is your arm okay?
Why?
Just make sure you didn't hurt your arm by patting yourself on the back by bragging
Oh,
on some of these predictions that you was doing.
hey, well, I told you I was wrong about Sequatchie. Very wrong. Sequatchie got put out in the second round. Another one that I was completely wrong about had a great year, but Red Bank ended up 6-4. You think about in Chattanooga, it was Tyner, and then it was a bunch of 5-5 teams.
Yeah. Hey, before
So
we go any further, hey, appreciate everybody watching. Got a lot of people watching live with us. We appreciate that, especially on the night before Thanksgiving. The night before Thanksgiving is probably mine and Randy's and RiverCity-Media's favorite time of the year because we know the next day it's gobble, gobble, gobble till you can't walk no more.
well, Annalee's gone, but I stopped and bought a pre-cooked ham that I'm gonna put on in the morning and warm it up for a couple of hours. I've got uh, I've got eggs, deviled eggs, and potato salad, and those are my 2 favorite things in the world. So don't feel sorry for this bachelor because I'm eating what I want to tomorrow.
Absolutely. And for the ones that's joining us, expecting to see Heath and Phil with us night before Thanksgiving, Heath contacted me earlier today, said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we got a family get together." And Heath, I didn't mean to throw you underneath the bus there by letting the family know that you didn't know about it. But anyway, he said he couldn't make it tonight. He's traveling to wherever for a family get together. And of course, our good friend Phil Harris that joins us on a lot of stuff beyond the booth and everything. His lovely wife, Miss Chrissy, that babysits Randy on Saturdays at the Tennessee games.
She
Uh, today,
does
today is her 39th birthday. Happy birthday, Miss Chrissy. And
29th, 29th, 29th.
okay,
She bailed
I'm
me out of jail, so I'm gonna give her extra 10 backwards. So
she hadn't bailed me out, so I'm staying with the 39, and
okay, okay.
I think she'd still be happy with that. But anyway, happy birthday, Miss Creasy. They're celebrating tonight, so but anyway, let's get to the playoffs real quick. Randy, you want to start, or you want me to start with Alabama?
You know what? Let's go ahead and do Alabama because that's what everybody's used to seeing. Then we'll talk about Tennessee a little bit.
We're going to start in the 1A division of Alabama, where, uh, as everybody knows, Friday night is the semifinals, and so in the 1A division, we got Addison that made it to the finals or semifinals, excuse me. Addison made it to the semifinals with a 28-22 win over Marion County, and they are facing Wadley that beat Hubbartville 62-38. And Randy, I know you know a little bit about the Alabama football scene and everything, especially with the North Division. But Addison and Wadley are two of the prominent teams in the 1A division in the North side.
It sounds like what Wadley walked into that semifinal matchup. 1A football is one of my favorites. And you talking about Addison and Wadley, we're talking about schools with a few hundred kids in it that's still playing football. That to me is what high school football is about.
You're talking about Wadley walking into the finals, semifinal, excuse me. Let me give you your rundown of how they got there. Wadley beat South Lamar 56-8. Wadley beat Meek 52-8. And Wadley beat Hubbartville 62-38. I don't know what happened to the defense on that last night, giving up 38 points. But anyway, uh,
There's a couple of schools that I'm not going to go over the background because South Pittsburgh, Marion, and Tyner has gotten to the semifinals, and every school score has been that way. So that's just how good these football teams are.
absolutely. And, Addison wasn't really a pushover either. They put up a lot of points, and Marion County gave them their toughest test. So, anyway, the winner of the Addison and Wadley will end up going to the finals in Birmingham against the winner of the Maplesville versus Leroy out of the South. And, you know, kind of like what me and Heath talked about, and Phil as well. There's just certain teams that you're going to see in the playoff run deep year after year, and three of those four teams are those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just a. And even when we talk about the teams we know, it's a repeat. So often it's about coaching in high school football. And I don't think people really understand how valuable coaching are. And when we get to 4A, we're going to talk about Dale Pruitt and his son, a Hall of Famer and a former SEC coach. That says a lot.
Absolutely. So we're moving over to the 2A division in the North Division, and excuse me, everybody kind of saw this matchup happening from basically week one of the season. But Pisgah with a 26-15 win over Southeastern, and they were going to be hosting Coosa Christian that ended up winning 17-0. And the Pisgah and Coosa Christian game, that was something that everybody's been kind of talking about all year long. And they kind of realized and felt like they were on a collision course to meet each other in the semifinals.
The thing we don't talk about enough is Pisgah loses their head coach, Luke Pruitt. It
Right.
graduates a lot of talent. Uh, Graduated even the head coach's son now is at Jack State,
Mm-hmm.
and they're back. I mean, people talked about why Luke left. Well, it's obviously because the cover wouldn't bear either if he stayed at Pisgah, and more than credit Coach Gilbert. It sounds like he's done a great job at Pisgah. Early in the year, I thought they were struggling a little bit, and then as the year got rolling and a little farther along, you begin to see that old Pisgah.
Absolutely. And, it's going to be a great matchup between Pisgah and Coosa Christian. Coosa Christian, had some issues last year, didn't make the playoffs, but they're in the playoffs this year. And we're not going to get into the political part of it, but this year they're coached by one of the top coaches in the state of Alabama, Rush Probst, that was at Hoover for all those years and moved over to you may have to correct me on this, but I think it was Gwinnett County, no, Colquitt County in Georgia,
Yeah,
I think it was. And most people know Coach Rush Probst from the Two A Days TV show that was on MTV, I think it was. But both those schools, they were expected to meet in the semifinals, and they both held up to their end of the bargain, making it. And both teams kind of, I mean, they didn't score a lot of points in their quarterfinal games, 26 by Pisgah, 17 by Coosa. But I got a feeling it's going to be a barn burner, lighted up scoreboard type game come Friday night.
I do too. And again, we're going to avoid it because I've made my opinion of Coach Probst here on River City Media well established. But you got to think, you know, one thing he can do is coach football. He goes to Coosa and now has them in the semifinals. So um, I know where my rooting interest is in this game, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the winner of that one will end up going to Birmingham and playing. And I was hoping to be able to give times and dates for the finals, but I'm not able to at the moment. But anyway, the winner of that one will end up playing the winner of the Lynette that ended up beating Laverne 35-16, and then they will be hosting Reeltown, where Reeltown beat Providence Christian 28-7. So, everybody knows in the state of Alabama in the 2A division knows Lynette is always basically in the semifinals and finals, in Reeltown as well. So, whoever wins between Pisgah and Coastal Christian, they're going to have their hands full in the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're going to move on from the 2A division. We're going to move on to the 3A division, and unfortunately, I mean, it was a great run for Geraldine, but Geraldine came up a little bit short by going to Mars Hill uh, last week, and so Mars Hills with the 42-0 win over Geraldine, and so Mars Hill will be playing host to Piedmont, where Piedmont beat Gordo 28-20. And Randy, I know you keep up with Alabama football some, but Piedmont and Mars Hill, this is just like the 2A division we talked about. They were on a collision course from basically day one because Piedmont and Mars Hill both are undefeated, and both of them loves to light up the scoreboard with points. And something that we had Mr. Michael Ingram on here from Piedmont a couple weeks ago. He's the voice of the Piedmont Bulldogs, and what he told me was he was worried about the playoffs because Piedmont hadn't played a full game yet. They were so far ahead at halftime that the starters would only play like one or two series in the second half, then they were done. So he was worried about how they would hold up in the playoffs, but it seemed like so far they've done an extremely good job.
Howie, and we've talked, that's the secret of good football year after year. We talked about that at five many, many times, how they were able to get that second team in early. You got to think it's a disadvantage, but think about, those legs have hundreds of reps less than the other kids do. And that's where I go back to look who's in the playoffs. Those are kids that are fresh usually. As many good stories as you like to hear about high school football, you never hear. You do hear, but it's rare that you hear of the team that's ground out 11, 17 to 15 victories, played four quarters every night for 10 weeks, and had to fight every battle. You just don't hear it as much as you do as these schools are talented, are able to get the kids to the sidelines, and you never know. Um, some phenomenal athletes at Piedmont too.
Mhm. Yeah, Raleigh Pinto, we had him on here before the season started. Probably going to be an all-state, 3A all-state player selection. Uh, Committed to Jacksonville State, one of the top receivers in the state of Alabama, and great young kid. He was on here. Enjoyed speaking with him that night, and but yeah, it's going to be a great game. I kind of wish it was at Piedmont because I'd like to go and watch it, but I'm not taking that trip to Mars Hill. Mars Hill has just basically rolled through everybody that they've played so far this year, and uh, I don't think it's going to be as easy against Piedmont as some people thinks.
I wasn't going to say anything about Raleigh Pinto until you brought it up. Now I'm going to say it. Mars Hill better get ready to double coverage him everywhere he goes because if you've got the internet and you follow Raleigh or you follow Piedmont football, every week for 10 weeks, you see a catch that makes you go, that's how good that young man is. And he went to Jacksonville because he wants to be at Jacksonville. He's got the talent. He could have went anywhere in the U.S. probably. Uh, he's I've never seen, and I'm saying this never, and I truly mean it, a kid at that age have that much body control when he's in the air. Some of the catches are unreal, Howie.
Yeah, and he's done it against all comers, so it's not like a freak thing. He's done it all year long, and I expect him to do it again Friday night, unless he eats too much turkey tomorrow. But I don't
Yeah.
see that happening.
Hey, hey, if Raleigh gets his speed down just a little bit, we'll be talking about Raleigh in an NFL uniform someday. He's that good of an athlete.
That's high praise right there. So,
Yes.
and the winner of the Piedmont and Mars Hill game, which is at Mars Hill, would end up playing the winner of this game, where Southside Selma defeated Glenwood 34-21, And so they're going to have to travel to Bayside Academy, where Bayside Academy beat Montgomery Academy 30-13. And that's two teams that I'm not going to say that it's kind of surprising that they're in the semifinals, but to a certain extent, it is.
It is, and you know what? I don't want to get on this kick. We've had old shows about it. How many times have you mentioned private schools in these first three rounds? And that's
Mhm.
three of the four down in South Alabama. And it's just, I think this is why Tennessee did what they did and separate the schools because they're so talented. But I, the South Alabama normally possesses the more talent, I guess would be fair to say, except in 3A football and 2A football. I'll challenge any part of the state of Alabama to come up with more talent than they are in North Alabama in 2A and 3A.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And so moving on to the classification, I know you're looking forward to talking about. We are at the 4A classification where uh, Plainview traveled to Good Hope last week with a 28-7 win. So they will be at home Friday night to play against Anniston. Anniston ended up beating Deschler 31-7. And Aniston winning is not really a surprise, but I think the score really surprised everybody by how much they kind of dominated Deschler. But Friday night at Plainview, you're going to have the Plainview Bears hosting Aniston Bulldogs, and you're talking about a place that it's going to be hard to find a seat unless you get there at about right after you get done with your shopping Friday morning.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? The beauty of it is, I've had a up and down relationship with the Pruitt family over the years, and I'm wearing my tee. This is actually an alumni shirt, so I hate what happened up there with Jeremy, but how awesome! There was a news uh, program done from 31 about this story and how he's took over for a little bit more duties for his dad. Now we all know Jeremy's going back to the college football as soon as he can. If he, from what I understood, was going to Jacksonville, but as a consultant. But to come to your sideline and you have dad, who is a Hall of Famer in two states, son that was a defensive coordinator in national championship games, head coach in the SEC. There's probably no staff with more accolades than the Plainview staff. But Coach Pruitt, in that interview, the older Coach Pruitt said it. There's been a lot of times Plainview's been behind this year, and the kids just kept on playing and kept on playing and kept on playing. And I think that is what this Plainview team is. It may not be the most talented, but they play for 4 quarters, and you're going to have to beat on them for 4 quarters to win.
Yes, we had speaker, Mr. Speaker Nathaniel Ledbetter on last night, and
Yes.
he said that he thought that Plainview's offensive line is probably one of the best ones they've ever had. He said it's hard to go and know for sure, but he said he feels like this is probably one of the best offensive lines they ever had.
And you know what? They've got a big task coming Friday night.
Hmm.
Um, let's not forget Plainview's new to 4A.
Right.
They came up from 3A, what was it, 2 years ago? And so now you've got a school that was a 500 3A school 2 years ago that's now an undefeated 4A school in the semifinals. These bright lights, big cities, and those opponents on the other side, outside of the monster that is five in most years, you don't see that kind of football in 2A and 3A. 4A always seems to have a little better athlete. And I still think Plainview's got to get through that task. And I think it's a big one with Anniston Friday night.
I don't know every team. I haven't watched every team play or anything like that. So, this is just my opinion, but I feel like that if I had to guess, this is probably going to be one of the fastest teams that Plainview has played all year long.
Historically, and just the demographic of Anniston, you would expect them to have very good athletic athletes. And folks up on Sand Mountain need to make it really hard for them to walk in there, and they're going to. And that's going to be a rowdy bunch. I've been there. I've been in that booth on a Sylvania Plainview Friday night or I called a semifinal up there several years ago where Jeremy was a player, and I know what that place can be at its very best, and it can be a nasty, hard place to play.
I know they're excited at Plainview. They got a pregame pep rally tailgate that's starting at like 3 o'clock. Uh, Sometime 3 o'clock somewhere on Friday, and it's going to be standing room only, just like it's going to be standing room only there at Pisgah. Both places are going to be packed to the max, packed to the gills, and uh, you may not want to wait, get there at the very last minute, even though you don't care if you get a seat or not. You still may want to get there a little bit early because you may not be able to get one or two rows deep in against the fence there either.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Howie, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. Uh, Dale Pruitt, a two-time finalist. Uh, I don't know that Coach Pruitt's ever won a state championship. I don't believe he has. He left Marion County to go back to Plainview, and they win a state championship. He's built that program at Marion and handed it off to Tim Starkey, which is a championship quality. He's now, at Plainview again at a championship quality. Del Pruitt builds good programs. I don't think we'd be remiss in saying that it would be nice to see Coach Pruitt win one on his way out the door. I don't know how many more years he's going to coach. I don't know that he knows how many more years he's going to coach. But I don't know of a coach with more victories that doesn't have that state title yet than Coach Pruitt.
Right, absolutely. And so the winner of the Plainview Anderson game will play like I said, in Birmingham against the South Division. And in the South, you got Jackson with a 50-7 win over WS Neal. So they're on the road to St. Michael Catholic, which beat Bullitt County 52-22. And Randy, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. I have no idea about either one of those two schools, but
I
if you
know,
make it if you make it to the semifinals, you're pretty dang good, and B, whoever you're going to play, they better be ready to play against you.
I know Jackson's got several kids that are mid to high level recruits, so there's a lot of talent there. You're talking about at the 1A, the Chattanooga level, Jacksonville level recruits. I don't know nothing about the other school. I just know they're talented. Um, Again, though, I'd be remiss if I didn't say private school in the South Alabama in the semifinals. It's an unfair advantage that needs addressed.
Yep, absolutely. And now we're going to move on to our 5A class in the state of Alabama, and our man, our good friend, I don't know why I said Mister, but Coach Tyler Van, uh, and his Scottsboro Wildcats are in the semifinals hosting Friday night. Scottsboro took a trip over to Fairview. We had Tyler and some of his kids on a couple weeks last week before last, and they had a little burr underneath their saddle there. They had a little something that they wasn't happy with because all they were hearing from Fairview was there's no sense for Scottsboro to show up. There's no reason for Scottsboro to show up. Scottsboro don't have a chance. Well, Scottsboro showed up, and Scottsboro showed Fairview what they could do with a 16-14 win, and that was one of the bigger wins probably in Coach Tyler Van's young, literally young coaching career.
I think Coach Van's 30, 31 now, maybe. Um, I posted after that win, and I made it from my heart. And Coach Van, if you happen to see this, there is no RiverCity-Media if it's not for Tyler Van. He was the first coach that took a chance on me and you, Howie, when he agreed to do the spelling. That's the only programming we had for a little while was getting started was the Tyler Van show. So I was able to watch it. I have took a break. I've took about a month's break, but I've watched everything, and I thought after watching that show with Coach Van and the players, I kind of felt that. I felt a little sting in their voice. I also want to just congratulate Coach Van. Uh, uh, what 8 years into his career, he's taken his second program to the semifinals. So
6 years.
six. I gave. He don't have much hair, so sometimes I get it wrong. I don't blame him.
It could be 7. I say he had 1 year at Woodville. I think it was 4 years at Sylvania.
I thought it was 5. That's where I'm mixing up. Maybe it
I,
was 4.
I think it was just 4 years at Sylvania, 4, 5, and then second year here at Scottsboro. So roughly 7. Either way, still young. I told him after we went off the air, and I don't think he'll get mad at me saying this. And I told him, I'm like, Coach, you've been in the business 6 or 7 years. Here you are in the semifinals again. It's not supposed to be this easy for you this early in your career. You're
No,
supposed to work your way up to it, but here he is. He's either way. He's got victory number 50 a couple weeks ago, and that's pretty impressive. Here he is. You're putting him a little bit of age on him. I don't think he's 31 yet, but he could be. Uh,
he
but
was 29 when he left Sylvania, so I was figuring
okay,
30.
okay. But either way, he's doing stuff that he really shouldn't be doing at the moment, coaching wise. And who was it? Mr. Ledbetter last night said that a lot of people on that Plainview staff is talking about Coach Tyler Van, talking about he's probably one of the best offensive minds in the state of Alabama.
And let me tell you one other thing about Tyler Van. He's one of the finest human beings in the state of Alabama, too. I feel like I could pick up the phone right now and say, Coach Van, I'm in trouble. I need some help. And I wouldn't have to wait very long for that help to come. That's the kind of person he is. He is, it's funny, we do the Gadsden State softball show, me and you. And then, of course, you and Phil do the North Alabama one. But we have Ryan Clark on our show, who was a D coordinator for Coach Van at Sylvania. And I just love for him to start telling stories about Coach Van on the sideline during game day. And it's just, it tickles my heart. I will say this about Tyler Van, and we'll move on. Nobody, and I know Coach Pruitt, I'd love to see get one. Nobody in my heart would be as good as the day. I'm not saying when it happens, but the day we'll be in the stands to watch Tyler Van win his first state championship, because it will happen.
Yeah, the first thing that came through my mind is when you said if I was in trouble and I needed something, I could call Coach Van. He'd come and help me out. He'd be there with as quick as he could. Well, he would probably laugh at you first, depending on what the trouble was, but then he'd come and help you.
Or you'd send Coach Wilson because he said Wilson's a Tennessee fan.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the last thing about Coach Van is that for people that don't know Coach Van, he is competitive at everything. Everything.
Everything. Me and him
We,
almost had war over pick'ems here one year, Howie.
I know that's something that I started just out of the blue one day, and it started out with him and you and uh, one of the Coolies, Ashton Cooley, I think it was, and before we went live on that next show, he wanted to know what was his record that last week.
Hey,
What was my record? What were their records? And then when I told him, then I'm like, yeah, I've got something started here. So we started doing it every week, and of course, he wanted to know who won at the end of the season. And
yeah, I got a little ahead of him, and there wasn't no settling for that. Uh,
no,
it was when
no,
I got ahead of him. I knew what was coming, and of course, the legendary softball games at Sylvania and Coach Clark and the late Coach Parham, and just the stories that came out of that. Tyler Van's competitive of anything, but every good coach, every good coach will tell you they've got a great wife at home, and he does, and Hannah, and a beautiful family and two children now. And I'm sitting here singing his praises, and just go win Friday night, coach. That's all I can say.
absolutely. So anyway, enough about that. We'll move on. Scottsboro be hosting Moody. Moody ended up making it to the semifinals by beating Briarwood Christian 51-27. And that's another one. And Randy, something that doesn't happen in Northeast Alabama, period, very often. You've got Scottsboro hosting, you have Plainview hosting, you have Pisgah hosting. From where I'm sitting at right now in my house at High Point, Alabama, I could be at any of those places within 20 to 25 minutes. And you could be from one to the other within 45 minutes. You could actually make it to all three places probably within 45 minutes. If you left from Plainview, go to Scottsboro, from Scottsboro to Pisgah, you can make it probably about 45 minutes. How often do you see that not just here, but in Tennessee as well, as far as three semifinal games being that played that close together.
You know, Howie, I've got a story I was going to tell. So we might as well bring it up. 11 miles apart, two semifinal games this weekend in Marion County, South Pittsburgh and Marion County. And you know what? Those schools are only removed from the state of Alabama by a wind blow. If it blew one way, you know, when they done the survey, South Pittsburgh and Malheur County might be in Alabama. And we know how much we talk about those kids at North Jackson now go to Marion. You know, the kids moved around over there. It's not it's not new. For a long time, North Alabama, North Georgia, East Tennessee, the talent level was not as good as it was in other places. You know, the best players in Tennessee come from West Tennessee. The best players in Georgia were from South Georgia. Best players in Alabama was in South Alabama. It's not that way no more, Howie.
Right.
Um, there is talent in this area, East Tennessee, Chattanooga. Let's go all the way down to between Gadsden and then over and pick up Ringgold and Lafayette. You know, look at the talent that's there now. You got Lad McConkey in the NFL. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's just to me, it's incredible what you say that there's that much. I remember on years when I was covering sports at WFPA, we'd have two quarterfinals games, not semis, two quarterfinals in Jackson and DeKalb County combined, and we would think we had a monster year.
Right. And now you got three semifinals and two in Jackson, one in DeKalb County. So it's going to be a great night Friday night, and but regardless, all three teams got their hands full. Pisgah with Coosa Christian, Plainview against my mind just went blank. Um,
Aniston.
Anniston and Scottsburg against Moody.
Yep.
And so all three is going to be great games. Standing room only, I feel like at any of those places. So if you're going to go, let me repeat for the last time: get there early. Even if you don't care if you get a seat or not, you'll probably want to get there early enough to be able to get close to the fence if you're just going to stand there. Because if you don't get there early, I'm going to say it's going to be a couple rows deep around the fence at all three places.
I've heard, and I believe it. I was at some of the games of 7,000 and 8,000 people at Plainview to see a game before, and that place might seat 2,000 at best.
Right.
So you know, you talk four. I said that was probably high 7 or 8, but 4 or 5,000 people, and you know, Rangeville ain't got that many people in it.
Right. So
There was one night we did a Plainview Sylvania game. Leroy and I sit there and said, "Where are these people from?" Because there was more people there than lived in both places combined.
right. That was the night that Plainview still had the old concession stand on the visitor side there, and people were setting up on top of the concession stand.
Yes, sir. It sure was. You were there then, huh? Yeah, I remember that night. And
Uh,
you looked towards the end zone, and in the end zone there was the 2 and 3 deep in the end zone.
right. All the way
People
around.
tried to people tried to set up chairs by the fence, and people literally would throw them out of the way.
Right. So, but moving on down to the South Division, you got Viger with a 14-0 win over Central Clay County. So they will be traveling to Williamson that beat Montgomery Catholic 41-10. Viger is one of the teams in the state of Alabama that is kind of always in the playoff picture year in, year out. And so whoever wins between Scottsboro and Moody, they're going to have their hands full with whoever they're playing from the South. And before we go any further, because it's those three schools, Pisgah, Scottsboro, and Plainview, we wish them the best of luck because we've had people on there, on here from those places, and they've been fantastic to join us and give us a shot to interview them, and apparently we did pretty well because some of us came back for more and more. So apparently we've done something pretty well.
It
Uh,
is. Hey, I want to say one thing about Viagra. You know, they beat Central of Chalkville, which maybe most talent in the state of Alabama over the last decade came out of that school.
Right. Yep, absolutely. So we're going to move on to 6A, and the last two divisions will be real quick because we don't have nobody in these, but we still want to get them out there. So Muscle Shoals with a 24-7 win over Mountain Brook. So that means Muscle Shoals will be hosting Clay Chalkville. Clay Chalkville with a 35-17 win over Homewood, and that's in the North Division. And coming out of the South, you got Benjamin Russell with a 40-13 win over Hueytown. And so that means Benjamin Russell will be taking that trip to Saraland, where Saraland won 56-32 over Pike Road. And Saraland, I remember last year, I think it was, they had, I forgot how many D1 prospects and signees on that team, and end up winning. I'm second, I think they won it all in 6A last year.
Sarah Land beat Nashville Battleground Academy last year with George McIntyre Jr. At quarterback, yeah, famously. And George McIntyre is now the backup at Knoxville. So Sarah Land had a good enough team to beat a D1 prospect. And you said Clay of Chalkville. I got it messed up there for a minute. I was meant to say the other school, but Clay of Chalkville, the home of Squirrel White, who is the living proof that NIL can go wrong from 50 catches at Tennessee to 5 at Florida State.
Yeah, but he's counting that money every day, though.
Hey, 50 to 5 is all I count.
So, and in the 7A division, you got Opelika that'll be playing against Thompson, and that is in the finals at Birmingham on December the 3rd. December 3rd, we'll kick it off on Wednesday night for the state Super 7 here in Alabama. They'll play on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And Randy, something that I know is near and dear to your heart. Before that game takes place, the girls flag football championships will be on display before those teams play at 7 o'clock. I think they kick off at around 12 and 3 or something like that, and then the Super Seven will begin. But I know that the flag football is near and dear to your heart.
Alabama's the one place that does it right. They see girls flag football as a form of football. And we've moved it to spring, and I guess here in Tennessee, we're wanting to give it its own window. But in Alabama, the fact that they take them on, I believe it's called Protective Stadium.
Talking about, I don't ever get it right.
UAB, I think that's where they play, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
It's Protective Stadium. Anyway, boys and girls competing in football in that same window deserve it. So, I'm we're a little behind in Tennessee, but this year we have spring, and we are at full TSSA sport, and I just want to salute the state of Alabama for what they've done with girls football.
Protective Stadium. You are correct. I always get it confused. Some reason I think it's progressive, but
Me
what do I
too.
know?
Me too.
What do
So
I know? So anyway, that's our preview show for the class 1 through 7A in the state of Alabama, and we're going to turn it over to Randy and let him talk about the Tennessee, the few teams that he predicted that would be in this position. If y'all missed the first of the show, he broke his arm patting himself on the back. So Randy, go ahead with your schools.
and we're not going to go through the whole bracket like you did. I just want to talk a little bit about Chattanooga. Y'all have done a great job, by the way, with this Alabama preview. Heath and Phil, shout out, and I think Heath and you kind of came up with this together. And
I cannot take no credit for it. Heath texted me and said, "Hey, can we do a preview show?" And I'm like, "When you want to do it?" So it
well,
was all Heath's idea, and appreciate him bringing it up.
hey Heath, let me invite you back next year to do the exact same thing. We'll do a podcast. We'll make sure it's promoted this time. We got into this a little late. It was a great idea, and we want to continue it, and maybe we'll expand on it and throw in maybe some North Georgia and Chattanooga. But I do want to talk about 4 games in Chattanooga area. Just that, we're in our semifinals in the public school, and private schools are already booked up to the finals. So, in Tennessee, we have private school playoffs, and we have public school playoffs, and we have private school divisions and public school divisions. But I want to start in the private school because I don't know how many people have really paid attention to Baylor, who's now in the top 25 in the whole nation, and McCauley, who are there with them. And the number one running back in next year's 27th class, David Gabriel Georges, is at Baylor. And I can tell you, I went and seen him play once this year. The I used to say Cadillac Williams was the best high school player I've ever seen. I don't say that anymore. It's David Gilbert Georges. This kid is that good. 400 yards against McCauley the other night, which is just chock full of D1 um, players. But on the fourth at Finley Stadium here at UTC on downtown Chattanooga, you have 11-0 Baylor, nationally ranked, versus 11-0 Brentwood Academy. And if you know anything about Tennessee football, Brentwood Academy has been they were the first kind of like, hey, we're going to put our stone down here. And Brentwood really, really represented it. So if you have a chance on the fourth, you can come see, I would take a guess, 20 college D1 college prospects on the field at any given time. And the number one player in next year's class. But that's on Thursday, December the 4th, Baylor and Brentwood Academy. And Howie, you've heard me talk enough about Baylor, and it's just a different level of football. And if Baylor was trying to, I couldn't even imagine a school like Hickson going trying to play Baylor. It's just a different level. It's more like there's college, low level college team, Division III teams that couldn't beat these Baylor and McCauley teams.
Yeah, and let me ask you something real quick. And I'm not real familiar with Tennessee football, high school football, but why did they just play 11 games? Why not play a full 15, 14 games?
It is so hard for them to get games scheduled because they try to stay in the private ranks. They've played Don Pesco Prep in New Jersey. They've been out to California to play, and there's only 9 teams in the large school statewide in the large school private, which and 2 of them's in Chattanooga. So there's just not a lot of chance to play. They went down and played IMG Academy, you know,
Oh, wow.
and it's just that's what Baylor and McCauley and Brentwood Academy and have become. And I accept that. Um, and obviously they give scholarships. The young man, the running back from Baylor, we are just talking about. Would you like to guess where he's from?
Arizona.
Yeah, try Canada.
Well, there you go.
He's a Quebec citizen down here. Um, we're going to jump over to Marion County. We already talked about it. South Pittsburgh, who uh, 11-1 going into this game. Ironically, the only loss they have, or 13-1, only loss they have, Silverdale Academy, where I go to church. Y'all welcome, come anytime. But again, a private school playing a public school was beat them 10-0 first game of the year and haven't lost since. We'll play against Coalfield, which is another power in 1A that's never been able to get over the top, Howie. Um, South Pittsburgh is kind of the measuring stone for all these teams. And Coalfield is kind of like Geraldine. They've been trying to climb that rank for year after year. And now Coalfield, which is right outside of Knoxville, gets to go to South Pittsburgh and play the bad boys of 1A football in Tennessee head to head.
Yeah, Marion County, they were dominant there back in the 90s and early 2000, but they kind of fell off a little bit. But they're back up to where they want to be at the moment. And like you said, Coach Starkey is got them running on all cylinders at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got South Pittsburgh and Caulfield on one side of town. And as you said, Marion County with Coach Stockey, who has one defeat, to Chattanooga Prep, which is a public school, but acts as a private school. You can go anywhere from Chattanooga and it's free. Shocking upset. And they play Eagleton Academy, which is a public school. In both of those games are one of them's in South Pittsburgh, one of them's in Jasper. Howie, the nearest I could tell you, that would be like having 2 semifinals in Rainsville and Sylvania.
Yeah, 8 miles apart. real, if it's a, everybody talks about Savannah and Plainview being 8 miles apart. Well, that's from school to school. Their city limits is right up against each other, so
Yeah,
you can actually straddle both of them, and one side of your body could be in one place and the other side in the other. But yeah, and of course it's going to be it's got to be somewhat of a rivalry game because both those schools knows each other, and those players know each other as well.
yeah, absolutely. And it's become, and it's too bad they're not playing right now because of other reasons than football. And those two schools not playing is the biggest shame in Tennessee football. A couple of years ago, there was some personal issues, and again, Dale Pruitt was at or at Marion County up till about 3 years ago. When did he go back? 4 years ago.
I think it was.
So he established this program and handed it over. Again, we talked about Tyler Van. Tim Starkey is as good a man as you can ask for. The first time I interviewed Coach Starkey here on RiverCity-Media, I made a big deal out of him being the first African American to be a head coach at Marion, and he corrected me real fast. And he was like, "The more important thing is, Howie, I'm the first person from here to be head coach of Marion," and that's what meant a lot to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody's calling me. Sorry about the phone ringing.
Oh, you're
Go
all
ahead.
right. All right. Quickly, we'll talk about 3A, where I thought Sequatchie County would be in it, but two teams we talked about in that preview, the Tyner Rams, a magnet school here in Chattanooga, who is just a football power, will play a team that I mentioned too, Gatlinburg Pittman. Now, these 3A schools, Tyner moves up from 2A, Gatlinburg Pittman for 20 years set in the same region as Alcoa. Uh, and now Alcoa's been forced to go to 4A. Do you not think that Gatlinburg Pittman's hungry to reestablish themselves there, Howie?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they probably wouldn't be here at this position at this moment if Alcoa hadn't had to move up.
No, and Alcoa's in the semifinals of 4A, and everybody expects them to win it. And um, there's a thing in Knoxville, not a lot of people know about it. That allows you to go to, if you pay, I think it's $70. You can go any. If you are a resident of Knoxville, you can go to any school you want to. So if I'm a good football player over at Knox Central, and the coach says, "Hey, you could probably start over here at Alcoa," and I say, "Hey, I'm just going to transfer to Alcoa, and my parents going to pay the $75." Guess what? He's enrolled in Alcoa the next day. So it's just what it is. But I know this is an Alabama preview, but that's some teams that's local to Chattanooga. It's local to us, and I want to invite everybody up on the 4th for the. If you've not seen Baylor play, it's worth your time to drive up here to see Baylor.
And I misspoke earlier. I thought you were talking about Marion County, so that's why I spoke about them. But
Yeah,
South Pittsburgh has Alabama ties. They got some Alabama coaches that have retired from Alabama that has went to South Pittsburgh, and
absolutely.
they're assistant coaches, and they've actually had some head coaches. But South Pittsburgh, like you said earlier, if that if the surveyor might have been a little tipsy that day, South Pittsburgh might be South Pittsburgh, Alabama, about but it's real close. But anyway, South Pittsburgh, a predominant playoff team in Tennessee, won so many state titles, and they say they take so much pride in their school.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been to South Pittsburgh during football season, it's well worth the time just to go up there and drive through because all you see is black and orange and pirates wrote on every window and flags and banners hanging everywhere up in South Pittsburgh.
And it's a tiny school. It's less than 300 kids in the high school. And, Howie, I don't talk about it a lot. For 2 years, I was Ron Levengood at Key Country down at, when he owned Scottsboro 98, owned a station up in South Pittsburgh. And I was 2 years I spent following that football team around. And that football team, had a future NFL player and Eddie Moore on it. So South Pittsburgh is a special place. I ended up at Squatchy, so That's like saying that's like going from Plainview to Sylvania, kind of. Your heart's either one or the other one. And I spent a decade at Squatch County, so I love it. But when I was at South Pittsburgh, I don't know that I've been at a bigger school that had more than a 1A South Pittsburgh. They was that much following.
Yeah, I got a ton of following, and for the people that's never been to South Pittsburgh, if you're going up on 72, going up that way, as soon as you cross over into Tennessee, it says South Pittsburgh, and they've got a list of all their school accomplishments on sports as far as the state championships and everything. And of course, Randy knows as well as I do, if not better, most of them are for the football side of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, if they get to the finals, we got our in River City Media has always had our coach within South Pittsburgh staff, and we'll get him on here and talk a little bit about this team.
Right. And something else, one last thing about South Pittsburgh. And I touched on it earlier. If you haven't been up there, it's worth the travel to go through, especially during football season, especially right now with the playoffs going on. So much community support that I mean, not just saying this, but every store has got South Pittsburgh something in the windows painted, uh, banners hanging outside. They support their South Pittsburgh Pirates through and through.
In Tennessee is so much about the county school. Grundy County, Sequatchie County, Bledsoe County, Ray County. It's all county schools, except in Marion County, where you still have South Pittsburgh, Marion County, and Whitwell. That's the county. Those three schools. So if you combine South Pittsburgh with Marion County, you'd probably have a real dominant 3A school.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of like back in the day. This will be my last comment, but back in the day when Stevenson and Bridgeport each had a school, and then they end up combining to make North Jackson.
Absolutely.
It's kind of
Great.
like Hazelwood and Cortland when they combined to make R.A. Hubbard. It's just, you know, but R.A. Hubbard didn't work out as well as they thought it would as far as football wise. But
It sure
anyway,
did.
they thought it was going to dominate, but unfortunately it wasn't. But Randy, I appreciate you joining me. You got any last comments before we get
Hey,
going?
if you're listening to us and we've had a big turnout tonight, just be back here at 8 o'clock. We're going to have Place Kicking Conversation 101, Pikeville University, Isaac Smith, and Brady Reisenhower from Hickson. And it's so good. Brady was a freshman when Isaac was a senior, and they took each other under the wings, and we're about to have them on a show here in about 7 minutes.
Awesome. Good deal. And Randy said 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock for the ones that's watching in Alabama.
Yes, I'm in East Tennessee. Yes,
And I'm in High Point, Alabama, right here, Eastern Standard Time. But I'm not far from the Georgia line either, so I'm surprised that my phone don't change from time to time. But anyway, Randy, I appreciate you joining me tonight. I was going to do this show regardless, but join us next week for the finals. We'll probably have a quick 30-minute show. Hopefully, we got at least 3 teams in here from Alabama. Best of luck to Pisgah. Best of luck to I also got to say Coosa Christian. I can't pick who I really want to win that game because
I can.
I know you can, but I've got a cousin that's on that coaching staff at Coosa Christian. So, I wish both teams the best of luck. What's the old saying? May the best man win. So let the best team win on that one. Best of luck to Plainview, Coach Pruitt's. Coach Pruitt's, I guess that's the way you could say it. Coach Dale Pruitt, Coach Jeremy Pruitt, and all the coaching staff, Coach Bruce, Coach Ledbetter, all the coaches. I know I'm going to leave some off because they've got a pretty huge coaching staff. Best of luck to them. And of course, we can't forget our main guy, Coach Tyler Van, and the Scottsboro Wildcats, because you got Coach Van, Coach Wilson, Coach Arnold, Coach Little, and everything that's at Scottsboro. And best of luck to them. And let's hope that we're talking about all 3 of them. Yes, sir.
River City Media family. That's all you got to say about Scottsboro.
Absolutely. And we've had Pisgah on enough too. Might as well say them too.
Yeah.
Uh, Finally got some Plainview people on recently, so that's a big plus for us. And but anyway, hey, thanks for joining us. Join us next week. Uh, Regardless, either way, if it's just me on here, I'll do a rundown of all the finals that'll take place, and we'll start at 6 o'clock a week from tonight. And actually, we will be an hour away from kickoff of the 7A state championship. And Randy, something else, if I'm not mistaken, Alabama Public Television is actually going to be having the flag football on TV as well, so you can actually watch it.
I will be looking for it.
So, so for QB1 Randy Cunningham, I'm Howard Chaney. Thanks for joining us for this playoff preview. Join us next week when we go over the finals and everything. So, and yes, we should be kicked because we wasn't talking about who's in the finals of the flag football. Blame me for that because I didn't do the research that I
We
should have.
will next week.
Absolutely. So, thanks for joining us, everybody. Good night and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.